Hey there, this is Katherine Cartwright. Welcome. Today I am working with a kit from Diamond Press that I picked up over at hsn.com. This is called Bright Bouquet, and it is an envelope that you can send through the mail, but it stands up and it has this beautiful set of flower dies that go with it. So you can create this fun bouquet, and I just had to have it because I love flowers, and especially paper flowers that you can send through the mail. So I'm using some Craft Smith paper. This is from Michael's, one of their brands, and I think it's called Berry Bright. I will link it in the description, but they had the solid paper, which I have enjoyed. I like the weight of it. It's really good for envelopes and things like that. And then card making as well. It's not the heaviest paper, but it holds up really well. And it was very inexpensive. I remember when I purchased it, it was on special. And so I have just enjoyed the fall color theme palette that was included. All right, so I cut my envelope here. This is a larger die set for the Grand Marquise or a larger die cutting machine. The Grand Marquise is a newer machine that Diamond Press put out that is larger, and it is allowing them to put to market these really fun interactive larger dies. Like they had a acorn box, they had a pumpkin box, they've had a mail box, and so they've had these three interactive, or I should say 3D images that you can die cut. And so they've just been a lot of fun, and this is another one that is allowing for larger dies. So I'm folding this up at the crease, and you can see that you have a little tab that you fold up, and it allows you to stand up this envelope. And I have a lot of ideas. You could send this through the mail, obviously, but I think this would be fun for like a wedding shower or a bridal shower or some kind of, Friendsgiving or something like that. You could make a little bouquet, or you could do some other things with it. So as a place setting, I should say. And I did use some flocked cardstock here, paper I was showing you. This is also from a Michael's that I picked up, that I cut some of the green in case you were curious where it came from. And so anyway, I could see you using this as place cards, and a lot of ideas with this one. Okay, so I'm going to work on some of the flower elements here just to show you how these go together. They've got a couple of dies that are little bouquets or little bushes, I guess, of flowers. And so it cuts out the flower and the stems all in one pass. And then I thought this was very clever. They have these smaller dies that are the tops, the flowers, and they have 4 on each one. So that saves on die cutting for sure your time. I love how they attach this, and I kind of pulled some colors together that I thought might work okay. I have a Plum paper. I'm pretty sure that's from Gina, and then some of these others also Gina. And so I was just trying to pull some scraps together that I thought would work with this purple, because there's some, it's a pink or purple. And so I wanted to get the tones, hopefully the shades the right way. And so I'm going to cut some orange and this more plum color, which is just so pretty. And then I can glue these on, which is really fun. And so pretty easy. I mean, it'll take a little bit of time to do this process, but I think this would be fun to, do in front of TV if you're watching a movie or something. Very easy to do, and you could create a bunch of these little stems of flowers, little bushes of flowers, and then you could use them in your envelope, or you could use them to make a card too. I think on the instructions they had an example where you could just use the floral part of it, and so there's a lot of dies in this. I know I didn't use all of the dies in here. I should go back and count them, but there are a bunch in there. So I'm just going to start using a little liquid glue here. You could use an adhesive sheet if you. That's something I would definitely do if I had some paper that already had an adhesive sheet on the back of it. This would be a very good application for an adhesive sheet, just to make it really quick and easy. But I didn't have that in front of me, so I'm just going to glue each of these down. But I love how it's just the top, and then it has the little stem holding it. Very, very cute. And you could make these different colors, multicolors if you wanted to. They don't all have to be the same. You're the artist. You can do them however you want. And then I'm going to put these other ones. I chose an orange. I'm pretty sure I believe it's Tangerine Twist from Gina K. I'm trying to mention the colors more often because sometimes pairing things up for me can be a challenge. And so I always appreciate maybe knowing a couple of colors that worked well together. I have so many different colors of cardstock, like I'm sure you do if you're a crafter. And I tend to kind of like to keep things together in terms of the color theory working. And because some shades, you think it's a pink, but it's a totally different pink than another brand. And so anyway, I just try to mention which brands I'm using. Okay, and I think that green also is from Gina K. It's a brighter green. Probably the brightest one, that I cannot remember the name, but I'll link these in the description so you can check those out. All right, and again, you can make them any color you want. So they have this larger flower, and again, I'm not even using all of the flowers, there's so many. And there's this little centerpiece that you can add to your flower, and I'm just going to put some on the edge, and I got a little too much, so I'm going to wipe that off. And then they have the little circles, which are the center. So you could do them the same color or a different color if you wanted to. So completely customizable. You could add a gemstone to the center of this or an epoxy dot if you wanted to add a little more dimension to it. Now I did look at the instructions here because I thought the flower looked a little strange just as a kind of square. And so it calls for a second one to build this up. So I'm going to cut my second flower here. And then I will pop that up together to create this little flower, which is just so pretty. And you can see it cuts in the lines into it, so you've already got some detail if you didn't want to add anything else. Sometimes I will ink blend on the edges of flowers just to kind of add a little bit more dimension, but with all of this detail, I really don't feel like you have to. Okay? So I've got that little flower made. There were these little half flowers also. I don't know if they're half flowers, but they kind of look, I don't know what style of flower this is, what kind of flower this is, but very pretty. And so I'm just going to cut two different yellows so I can layer them together. And I'm going to cut a piece of the flocked paper to add at the bottom of the flower to put them, kind of pull it together. And just, they're really easy to put together. All the details thought out for you in this collection. All right. So I've got my lighter yellow and my darker yellow. And then I've got my little piece of green that will go on the front here of that flocked paper. Because I was going to try and use the same color green that I had used for some of the stems. All right. I definitely am just going to glue this down. The little green piece, and then I'm going to add this to my layer of the yellow. And you just it kind of just fits in there. You can see where it sort of lines up, and if you're using liquid glue, you have a little bit of time to kind of push it around, which is why I enjoy using liquid glue. I know I talk about it all the time, but I really have mostly, except for foam, transitioned over to liquid glue for most applications. Sometimes I still have to use a dry runner, tape runner, on maybe a embossed piece or something that's not going to lay flat or that is not porous paper, fibrous, and I'm just trying to get this to go together. I'm like, oh, this looks a little funny. But then I'm just going to stick that down there, and it has that dimension with the added layer. Okay, next step that I did is I used some of that same purple paper to cut out the layer of the envelope, and you'll see how that's going to go together. But I need to get my little banner. You can see there's a little small stamp set included with, I think 8 sentiments there that you can add onto your banner, and then you can create your banner. So you could use just the main part of the banner. I do that all the time where I don't add the tails if I just need a little something like that. But you can add the tails here, and I'm just trying to pick out my stamp, and I'm going to use thank you. And I got to find a block. I didn't have my stamp positioner close, and so I needed to use a block, so I'm kind of rooting around, knowing that I had one somewhere. It's probably a little too large, so I'm hoping that it stamps out okay. And then I'm just going to get my banner here and stamp thank you. I definitely need some thank you cards with the fall coming up into the Thanksgiving season as we move further into 25 and get closer to the end. It is not far now to the end of the year. And so I'm always looking for having thank you cards, especially a fun one like this that is 3D. All right, and then I'm just going to add the other tail, and it just gives this idea that you've got a 3-dimensional banner. All right, so I am going to start working. This is the hardest part of this project is putting it together, filling my paper, and I've got my 2 pieces here that will you can see, look like the envelope to finish the envelope off. And then I'm just kind of placing my flowers here, trying to get an idea of, I don't want to cover them all up, but I'm just not exactly sure how this will go. I can layer some of these on top with some foam, but I want it to look like the envelope here. And so I'm just going to add a little bit more glue to this orange one. And I'm going to have some of this hanging off, which will be fine because this will fit into an A2 sized envelope. I was surprised by that. I really thought it would have to be a 5x7 envelope because I really didn't pay attention to the size of it. But this will fit for mailing. And so I'm just trying to figure out where I want these little flowers to go. And then I'm going to have to cut some more. I'm pretty confident at this point that I know I'm going to want to fill that space more, but I want to get the beginning of my bouquet together. So you're just going to glue this layer on that makes it look like an envelope. And then there's an additional piece here, but I'm just kind of laying more things out. So I've got this flocked paper. I was able to add some glue to it. This is one that you could also put an adhesive sheet on if you're worried about it sticking, because it's not the most porous, but it did seem to accept the liquid adhesive and stick pretty well. And then I'm just going to add some more greenery, but before I get too far, I'm trying to decide about how I want this last little bits of greenery to go in here. So you're getting the whole process of putting this together, and then because I wanted you to see kind of how it works. Because sometimes, I'll just show the finished project and people are like, how did you do that? Because some people are more advanced and some people are just beginning card making. So I try to be thoughtful of that in my videos. Sometimes I don't have time to do a whole demonstration, and I know I should, but I just don't. And so hopefully you will enjoy this tutorial. And even if you don't have this set, you could use any dies to create a bouquet. So maybe this would give you some ideas with some dies that you have. And I think this would be really cute, like I said, for Thanksgiving. I think it would be really fun to fill it with maybe some little critters, some little critter stamps that could come if you put some foam on the 2 pieces that I glued down to make the envelope look like an envelope. You could pop those up and you could fill it with some little critters, possibly, or you could even do like a gift card and maybe a little treat in there. So I'm going to have to try that next time when I pull this back out. All right, so I added those 2 flowers kind of at the bottom, and then I've got my banner here that I am going to add right in the middle. I want that to be definitely visible to the recipient as a thank you. And here I cut some extra flowers. I love that they have the centers and they put 2 on each of these, so it makes this part really, really easy. Sometimes die cutting can be a little tedious. It's really fun because it allows you to make some really awesome projects and completely customizable, which I like. But I do enjoy that they have thought to add extra, so the work goes faster. Okay, so I'm going to layer the 2 of these kind of skinnier flower together. I'm going to add a center on here, and then I'll repeat the process using the other circles. And I thought I had that upside down, but I realized I didn't. I had the right side up. I just didn't have my glasses on looking that closely, and so I have the right side facing correctly out. And then here is that little orange one. So now I can just take these little elements and finish filling in my bouquet. So cute. And I'm just trying to get the direction I like, because it's not a That one's really not perfectly symmetrical. It has a little more variance on the width of the petals. So I'm just kind of taking that into consideration. And then I'm going to fill this up with my last little flower. So I've got a nice little hopeful balance of, I didn't really count the flowers, but maybe it's odd, maybe it's not. But you can see how that stands up. So much fun. And I was just going to show you that it does fit. This is an A2 size envelope from the Happy Mail collection that came out recently from Diamond Press. And so I just wanted to make sure that it fit, and it does. So that is today's share, the beautiful bouquet from Diamond Press. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you are well and happy and crafting. Have a great day.